So, welcome to my throne room. This is my throne. So, who's ready for a lovely composting toilet chat?
Me.
It has been some time since we actually built the composting toilet, and we have given it a good run-in. And I know that the most burning question that most of you have is, does it smell? And surprisingly, no. Now, in terms of using the toilet, it's not that dissimilar to a normal flushing toilet in the house. So generally, when one needs the toilet is usually closed, like this.
Yep.
Then you approach the box, you open the lid.
You're actually gonna say this step by step, okay?
And then you sit down, okay? Well, some people wonder how you use a composting toilet. That's step one. Open the toilet. Now, obviously, you have to take your pants down and other things to have direct access to your parts, but I'm not going to do that for you, because you don't need telling that. Your mother should have taught you that. So this is the composting toilet. It is clean now. You don't need to panic. So what you see in here is that is the poop side, and that is the pee side. So your solids go in there, your liquids go in here. So one of the key things with composting toilets is that you need the liquids to go at the front and the solids to go at the back. That's generally not a problem, especially if your urine diverter is correctly positioned and everything overlaps the way it should, which, by the way, we have explained all of that in our DIY composting toilet guide, which is currently available on our site and is 20% off. Shameless plug here, go get it. It took me ages to describe how to build this thing in writing. So if you need it, go get it. It is amazing, if I say so myself. Now, depending on the anatomy that you possess, there might be some strategical differences as to how you approach going to the toilet. Now, this may sound complicated. It is not. So I have to occasionally lean forward to ensure that the liquids go at the front and they don't drip at the back, just because of the way things curve. While Sam can just sit and sort of point. Make sense?
I hope so. And that's out on the internet for everyone to know.
Why did we agree to do this? Okay. Maturity, guys. Maturity. We all poop, right? Okay. Right, so once things have gone in the right locations, then all you need to do is finish your cleansing ritual, okay? Right here you can see our sawdust, our toilet paper, and our water bottle, our squirty water bottle. So for number ones, we find that it's best to clean the urine diverter bowl here after each use, because there can be speckles of urine essentially that remain, and they will start smelling sooner rather than later because they're closer to the surface and have more contact with the air. So all we do is we just squirt when the bloody bottle's working. There you go. You just do that. And then you fight with the bottle and curse. But essentially you clean it until you're satisfied. And generally that is enough for odor control on the number one side. Now, we have tried other people's recommendations to use white vinegar to squirt in the bowl the way we did now. And I think that works to help with odor control. However, you have to be careful how much vinegar you squirt into the hole, because then your van will start smelling of vinegar. So I don't know how much you fancy the smell of vinegar, but that wasn't the essence that I was going for in my house. So you have to be careful with the vinegar. Now, I find that actually squirting some white vinegar into the pee tank itself. So after cleaning, you squirt some white vinegar into the pee tank, and that seems to actually control the odor just fine, and the vinegar doesn't just, you know, evaporate into the air and make everything smell. But if you do it into the toilet bowl itself, that you can smell. So that's what you do for the pee tank. I just keep the bottle there, or you can just put it in the cupboard. Anyway, it's up to your storage design, doesn't really matter. For the poo part, what you do is you have a scoopy thing. In this case, it's just a cup. It is a scoopy thing of your choice. And then you locate the waste in there, which let's imagine this is brown and goopy. And all you do is you just cover it, okay? And make sure you cover it well. Ideally, there shouldn't be anything showing. So once your waste is covered, you just close that up, you put that away, Bob's your uncle. In our case, we have to arrange the toilet so our fan can take effect. Well, either we can leave it like this, in which case the fan hole aligns enough so it vents things out, just not as well if we actually turn it and stash it away. Just that's because of the way we drilled the hole, which you can watch the build video that we released last week. Eventually, then you put it in place, you find the switch, you turn the fan on, and the fan's now on, and it's venting any odor outside. Interestingly, we found that the number ones have a tendency to be a tad more aromatic than the number twos. With the number twos, as long as you have enough dry medium surrounding the solids, then there's no reason for that waste to smell. Your sawdust medium just absorbs all the moisture from the waste, so the poo itself doesn't actually make contact with the air, which means that the smells don't go airborne. Now there is one thing that I would mention, and I think that we need to upgrade to that. Now most advanced composting toilets have a stirrer, so an agitator. It is essentially a stirrer that once you have done your business, then you spin the stirrer, and that mixes the waste with the dry medium a lot better than if you were to obviously just put some sawdust on top of it. And the reason I think that will be an excellent upgrade, other than the fact that it's going to be excellent for more odor control, so the toilet will last longer before we have to empty it, it would also allow us to use much less dry medium. Because at this rate, with a toilet like this, honestly our bucket is pretty big as well, so with a toilet like this, we're probably, well, we're going to go through a lot. I don't know how to measure it because currently we're just using things that we have, like sawdust that we have reused, recycled from our building. We haven't gone through that, but we are going through it rather quickly. Once we're paying for that medium, if we have to buy a £5 bag of something every week, that will be £20 for the toilet, for us to run our toilet a month. And I don't know, that's a bit much, you know. In my opinion, that's a bit much for me to be flushing my toilet. So we are thinking of upgrading our composting toilet to have an agitator, and if you have purchased our DIY composting toilet template guide, then we'll inform you of when we've upgraded that, and we'll give you the pages if you wish to do the same upgrade to yours as well.
Now, in terms of how often we actually have to empty the toilet, we found that for the number 2 side, it was probably every 2 to 3 days that we had to empty the bag and replace it with a new one. And then for the number 1 tank, the P tank, probably every 24 hours was a good bet.
Yeah, like it doesn't start smelling by the 24 hours, but like after that those 24 hours, it's more likely for you to start noticing an odor. It's like, it's not strong. It's not like an obvious, oh wow, that smells like a toilet. It's just kind of a faint, like, oh, like from this direction the air would blow, and it's like there's something in the air.
Yeah, the number 2 tank, again, we definitely didn't fill the bucket, but every 2 to 3 days it gets to the point where it feels
actually
like,
the amount of dry medium that you put at the bottom significantly affects how much or how often you have to empty it. So in last week's video I put 2 to 3 cups of sawdust at the bottom. That is only enough for about 3 poops. Okay, so within 3 poops that will start basically emitting some odor, because there'll be more waste than there is sawdust.
So we actually ended up putting quite a lot at the bottom and then covering each one over, and essentially, since we had a thick layer on the bottom, it allowed for more poops before we had to change out the toilet bag.
Yeah, and in all honesty, how much the number 2 bucket smells and how often you have to change it over honestly depends on what you've eaten. Just
leave it
there. And in terms of our routine maintenance, how we actually clean the pipe and the urine diverter, we simply remove our lid, we take it outside, and then we jet some water, obviously through the urine diverter and through the pipe, because our pipe has grooves, so we need to make sure that we get the urine out of those, which is not difficult, you just have to send water down it. Then that dries, like I said, we can squirt some vinegar at the bottom, which seems to do fine, and then that's it.
And then in terms of the number 2s, we literally take the lid off, get the bag out, put a new bag in.
It's relatively low maintenance at the moment, and if we add the stirrer, it would be even less of a maintenance.
Though I would say there was one thing that we definitely need to do. We've actually got the parts for it. Actually, no, we're waiting for one part from China. But there is one thing, and it's the fan. Now, because our thing is actually independent, we couldn't wire it up to our leisure batteries, which meant we had to build an independent circuit, and we put a 12-volt battery with a 12-volt fan.
Now, when we're looking for the small 12-volt battery, we could only find alkaline ones, so they're non-rechargeable 12-volt batteries.
Yeah.
And we said, okay, well, let's just do it with them and see how long they last. They last about 8 hours. So 1 day.
Yeah.
Essentially, you get 1 day of use from the battery, because depending how often you go, then you flick it on, you may want to have it on for most of the day.
Now, if they were rechargeable batteries, that would be fine. We would just have a rotation going, we'd take one out, replace it, done. But I couldn't find rechargeable 12-volt mini batteries.
Mini ones, yeah.
So what we ended up doing was actually buying a 5-volt fan and then buying a case to fit AA and AAA batteries in, so that we can power, so 4 of them in series can power a 5-volt fan. And those are rechargeable, which means we can set a rotation.
Yeah.
And also that battery bank will last a lot longer than that tiny itsy bitsy 12-volt battery.
Yeah.
And also the switch that will probably be now on the outside will have an LED indicator, which means we will know when the batteries have run out and we need to change them over. Because at the moment, I think actually what we're relying on is when the fan starts running out of power, you can hear it wheezing a little bit and you're like, the batteries need replacing. But overall, I am very happy with our composting toilet. I definitely wouldn't have gone for a flushing one, and we did a chemical one in Scandinavia, and that was a definite no. I hated the smell of the chemicals, and I obviously didn't like that you could only dump it in very specific dump stations because it's got a lot of chemicals and that's dangerous. And the chemicals are really expensive as well, and they don't last that long.
Yeah. So for, a full-time situation where we might go off-grid somewhere for a fair amount of time, it just wasn't an option. And the 3-hour drive, the traumatic 3-hour drive in Scandinavia, with the sole purpose to dump our toilet because it was filling and it was getting dire and we couldn't do it anywhere else.
And it was smelling. It was beginning to smell because it was nearly full.
Yeah.
That traumatized us enough to never do that again.
So yeah, that's that one. So no, composting toilets don't have to smell. If you use them correctly, they do not smell. Yep. There is a learning curve for them, so you do have to be, determined that you want to use one, and you wish to be educated, which is probably why you're watching this video. Yep. Good start.
Good start. And I would say the main reason why composting toilets smell is usually because they don't separate the solids from the liquids.
The main smell that is going to come from a composting toilet would be a more earthy smell that is highly dependent on the type of medium that you're using. So if you're using pine, it would tend to smell more like pine, peat moss, coco coir. All of them have different sort of tangs to them, and basically depending on what you use, that's the tang you're going to get. And the longer your waste and the compost sit together, the more of compost. It starts to smell of compost. So it's a bit like your gardening sometimes. But usually you would have changed it out by the time it gets there. So it's only if you happen to leave your waste for some reason in the van because you're not in the van. If you're leaving your van to sit, take your toilet stuff out, guys. Just don't make it a problem.
But the fan is essential, and the fan works great. Just need to change the battery situation over.
Yes.
But I would say the fan works good to ventilate any smell, whether it is initially after you go, or that earthy smell that you get after a while, just out.
Yeah, definitely recommended. So if you have any more questions, leave them in the comments down below. If in the future there are enough questions for us to do a whole other Q&A on composting toilets, we're willing to do that, so that's fine. Yes. So thank you for coming for our toilet chat. I know you are all very excited for it. Now let us go and eat a snack.